Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning, Dr. Clint. Thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be just a lot of fun, because we were talking earlier how we have so many things in common. And, when we think about conversations, right, it helps when you feel somewhat connected to the person you're talking to, right? Does that make a difference for you as well?
Yeah, I think anytime you can find common ground and find something that you both have a passion about would be ideal, or if there's something that you like or enjoy, I think it makes a conversation flow and a deeper connection made for sure.
Without a doubt. So talk to me about, we're going to talk about so many things. I'm excited.
Me too.
You decided in your life journey to go back to school, to look up, I guess, psychology, right? What interested you about the dynamics of even coaching, right? Let's even talk about how you got introduced to coaching in the first place, because you're an athlete. Let's talk about that. As a kid, my gosh, I have 1,000 questions for you, right? I'm excited to talk to you, but let's start from the beginning. As a kid, who influenced you, would you say, the most?
I would say that have to be my dad. My dad was an athlete. He got a full ride to play basketball at Stanford. He, growing up, he still played he was obviously done, but he played in city leagues, and we would just follow him to the gym. And so he was always somebody that continued to be active. And I think that was just kind of part of our family, and just kind of followed in his footsteps, and just at a young age, just enjoyed being active, whatever sport it was. Loved being outside, loved trying every sport, although I was not good at all of them. I think back in the day, that was just something we did. We just, maybe played wiffle ball, or, went to the park to, play catch or play home run derby. But that was always part of our life growing up, out in the street, playing sports, and having a ball.
Having a ball. So many kids nowadays don't even know how to throw a ball or even yet catch one. It's definitely different times, right? When you and I grew up, where we actually went out, we did sports, we ran around, we did not sit in front of a computer screen, because maybe we didn't have them back then. And we also think about technology has truly come into our lives, and it's changed our lives, some for the good, some for not so good, especially like teenagers nowadays. I don't ever remember as a teen having a phone, because guess what? Not even adults had phones unless they were military, right? And if we needed to make a phone call, even to call home, we had to look for a payphone. And sometimes you go running down the street. Oh, somebody's on that phone. I got to go to the next block and see if I can get, have enough coins, whether it was a nickel, a dime, whatever it was, to even make that phone call. Times have changed. Technology has brought us to be able to connect better. but it also has allowed us to lose that connection, especially if you see people at a dinner table and they're texting each other instead of conversing, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that the story about the phones. I was just talking to my nieces and nephews. I have kids as well, and they're asking me, what did we're talking about if your car broke down, and back in the day, like, what did you do? You didn't have a cell phone, and I remember that happening with us, with my dad, and you would just, you'd get out of the car, you'd go to the closest house that you were at, you'd knock on the door, ask if you could borrow their phone, go inside and use their phone and call for somebody to help you out. But yeah, it was quite different. And nowadays, I think, you see that. You see a lot of people that struggle with social interaction in person, being able to have a conversation, being able to look at someone in the eye. And it really is an art, right? For those of us that grew up maybe, a little bit longer ago, that was something that came naturally. That was something that we did all the time. We are immersed in. It was just embedded in us. And now you'll see, if you go out in certain situations, some people, that's a struggle for them. And it really is a skill set that needs to be practiced and can help in your overall development professionally, personally, of course. And I think it's starting to swing back around where people are seeing the value in that.
It sure is. When we think about the people who influence us nowadays, right? It's a little bit different because social media has truly captured a lot of our young adults, and they're following false models. They're following people who, maybe they go in and they do 3 days of shooting and they have a thousand different outfits that they change into, and it's all a facade, if you will. They're not truly following a person. Back in the day, when you followed someone, it's because you either knew them personally or you read on about them in the library. It was not what it is today. So following a role model has totally changed. What role models, besides your dad, did you have when you were growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it was a older basketball player. Some may remember him, Larry Bird.
Oh yeah.
And to your point, he played for the Boston Celtics in the late 70s, 80s, into the early 90s. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the things, as I read on him and they would talk about him, was his work ethic and his
Yeah.
ability to, he, like me, he things that resonated were, he grew up in a small town. I also grew up in a small town here in California. He learned to work at his craft on his own. That was something that I thought, wow, here this guy's doing it way out in the country, and he's made it all the way to the NBA. I live in this small town. Perhaps there's hope for me as well. And the things that he was saying, were available to me. Hey, you can work hard. You can go into your driveway and shoot baskets. You can work at your craft in different ways. And, not saying that, hey, you got to go to this big camp and you got to get seen here. And so a lot of that resonated with me, where I thought, hey, there's somebody similar to me and is giving me some of these principles for success. And that was something that I held on to. As you know, in your journey, you get some successes, some setbacks. Sometimes you want to quit, sometimes where it's unfun. And remembering those stories of other people that were able to accomplish that, and was huge during kind of those troughs in the success journey.
Yeah, without a doubt. And what a great player too. you know, when we think about coaches, one of the things that you talk about also is the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. Did you have a bad coach amongst your many good coaches?
Yeah, I did.
Mm.
You maybe alluded to it earlier. I was able to early on in my career play professional basketball over in Europe. I played in Australia for a year. That's not in Europe, and in Germany for 5 years.
Mm.
And a lot of great coaches along the way. Some, I'll spin it positive, had some areas, some from room for improvement. But one stands out in my mind. I had played for a Eastern European coach. Their style's a little bit different, and he
Mm-hmm.
was really, they were really into at the time more of a scare tactic, play with fear,
Mm.
play that you're going to lose your job. There's always somebody coming to take it.
Wow.
And those type of things, we're going to run you into the ground. We're going to get the most out of you, kind of like you're just a piece of machinery almost, right? Where you
Mm.
don't have any emotions. And we all know that it is a professional thing. So you do have to rise above your emotions, and you are paid to play and perform. But that type of leadership could only go so far. It has a ceiling to where that type of motivation begins to end, to where people stop having buy-in, they stop engaging. And I just remember thinking, there's so many other ways
Mm.
that he could, if you will, pull my levers, right, to motivate and encourage this team.
Right.
Uh, and so that was kind of an aha moment for me early in as we
Mm.
talk about leadership journey and studying leadership, on what could be done well and some areas that are really, and now we would call them old school and ineffective and not good for the long run.
Mm. So let me ask you, when you played professionally, because I've spoken to some coaches who are on professional teams now, whether it's a racing team, a football team, a baseball team. I've spoken to those type of coaches, and not all of them were the actual coach to the player. They were more of a mindset coach or
Mm.
a therapy type of coach. Or so when you were playing, how many coaches would you say were on a team? Because I think now they have a slew of coaches for all kinds of, you know, because when we think about the amount of money that a professional player makes, they need to be guided in so many different areas, not just in the game itself, but maybe on daily tasks, on habits, on how to even think differently because of the pressure that they're going through. How many coaches when you were playing would you say you had besides the main coach?
Yeah, well, quite different. And this is going to kind of show my age. To your point, it is dramatically changed. So we were what you would a traditional team. So I think we had maybe 4 coaches on
Mm,
the team total.
wow.
And to your point, nowadays, right, you're running into, you'll look at some of those NBA benches, just on the bench that they have 6 to 8 guys, and that's not behind the scenes. They have people that are doing quantitative analysis and
Mm,
video, and to your point, the cognitive portion for the teams, because they're realizing the importance of that for their success, right? It's a new study, and they're realizing that in order for people to optimize, is that they have to tap into that cognitive function and really get that programming right.
yeah, yeah, because in the old days it was like your physicality is all they cared about.
That's it.
But now they realize you may be physically gifted,
Mm,
but if we can get your mind connected with your body, wow,
mm.
you're going to be able to deliver so much more to the team, right? When we have that connection.
Hmm. Yeah, and right, and it even spills even more into you talk about team cohesion, and you talk
Mm,
about right, that team culture that you're trying to build. And right, if people are healthy cognitively and individually, and they develop things like an abundance mindset, right? You just think about
mm,
it in sports, right? I've seen that so many times. Is some players, and we see it in business as well. Some people have this kind of scarcity mentality, like only, there can only be, one person that gets all the attention on the team, right? In business as well. Only, there's only so much adulation for a team, but, developing that abundance mindset, right? Of basketball, like, hey, if you flourish, it doesn't mean that I can't flourish as well, right? It doesn't mean that there's enough adulation out there for us both, and that we can both have good contracts if we do well. And so helping players, right? And then you can obviously see that transfer into the business world of helping people develop that type of mindset where they go, you know what? Your success doesn't mean my demise or my failure, right? But it can mean that we both excel. And when you start developing those type of mindsets, man, it's transformative for the individual, right? Because you can imagine you go home and you're like, oh, Johnny scored so many points and I didn't. And that means that they think he's the best and he's going to get the next contract. And then, right, you're in athletics, and then how your mind starts to spin in an unhealthy way. Whereas, right, to your point, developing those other mindsets of like, hey, that was a great game for him. I can have a great game next game, and right, we can excel and we're going to win. And when we win, there's more, right, that comes with that. And so I think that's a huge thing that teams are starting to tap into. And as we know, businesses and corporations are seeing the value of that and making sure their teams are right cognitively as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought it about scarcity and the fact of business. I'm in New York, so a lot of people know New York pizza. I had a business on a block that had 7 pizzerias on the same one block. And I questioned it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are they all, but they were all successful.
That's amazing.
And I'm like,
wow.
Oh my goodness, 7 pizzerias on the same block.
Yeah.
Wow. But it wasn't like you walked into one and there was nobody in it. It didn't matter if you walked into one or all 7 of them, you would see people in them all the time, sitting down, eating, ordering. And it's like, wow, people love pizza. That was my
right. They love New York, right? Probably one of the best cities, and pizza. That's a great combination.
Right. So, and then the other thing that I was thinking,
beer, it's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing is New York does understand the concept of competition. Because the other day I was talking to my girlfriend. I was like, it's really interesting how many other states have 3 football teams. 3, we have the New York Giants, we have the New York Jets, we have the Buffalo Bills, all out of New York. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then we have 2 basketball teams, right? We have the Nets, and then we have the Knicks. And then we have 2 ice skating teams, right? 2 hockey teams. We have the Islanders and the Rangers. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It's
with the
crazy.
Devils right next door too.
Yeah. But it's crazy when we think about, and tons and tons of people go to these games. So it's not about that we can only have one team. If we deliver and also obviously with teams, it's also about that fan base, right? How do we get people coming back over and over and over again, whether it's to the pizzeria or to the stadium? It's what is it that we're delivering? And listen, sometimes we have teams that stink, right? But people still keep going because there's that hope. Right? We all have hope inside of us. We have faith that maybe, hey, listen, the Mets, they were champions in 1986. We're waiting for them to come back.
Right. That was a good year, right? Definitely.
Oh, yeah,
the Bill Buckner through the legs. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you are, based on all that you're doing, you are definitely into the mindset. You're definitely into unlocking people's potential. right? Because a lot of people, what do? They start on something, they throw away the key, and they think that's all there is. But there's so much more. So we
Mm,
shouldn't throw away the key, right? We should
mm,
always use maybe you have to almost be like a janitor. You have to have multiple keys because there's so
mm,
many doors that we can open. Let's talk
mm,
about that. You have so many different avenues to who you are because you kept
mhm.
opening different doors to figure out who you are as a person.
Yeah, and I think right that starts with recognizing that we often have limiting beliefs, right?
Mm,
And um, uh, whether often those come from either conditioned in society, things that we learned growing up, things that we took on from teachers or others. And I think a great story. I love to share this story because it
sure.
impacted my life for it. It was a little bit negative, but I turned it into a
Mm,
positive, and I think it kind of shows subconsciously how often people in our society and people we run into begin to put those beliefs on us, and then we begin to
mhm,
take them on without even realizing because we're so immersed in them. And it happened when I was a sophomore in high school. I went to, I think, one time, and you go and talk to them, and they wanted to know, hey, what path are you on? Where are you going towards? And as I shared, I kind of knew early on at 5 years old, I wanted to play basketball. I knew I wasn't super tall. I knew I grew up
mm,
in a small town, but I knew that maybe I could
mm,
play over in Europe if I didn't make the NBA. So I remember telling the counselor this. And so I remember the counselor saying, well, you know what? That's okay, but you're in a small town, and you're the chances of doing that are really slim to none. And um, you know it's going to be a difficult path. And why don't we make get you a backup plan instead, for you in case that doesn't work. And I just remember thinking, right, um, wow, right, as I look at it, and you talk about limiting beliefs, that conversation could have gone so much differently, right? Like, what if I would have gone in there and I told him, hey, I want to be a professional basketball player? What if he would have just said, wow, you know what, Clint, that is amazing
mm,
vision you have for your life. It sounds like something has been downloaded in you. What can we do to come alongside you to help that dream? What type of training can I put in front of you to help you realize that?
mm,
What type of plan can we make to help get you on the right track to practice enough to get it there? What kind of resources do you need to make this dream a reality? And it just got me thinking, like, why do we often go to the former instead of the latter? Like,
right,
why did he want to camp on that? In
mm,
that, and like, it's going to be hard, and you're a small town, and you're not that tall, and then instead of going in to say, let's go, let's get some
mm,
stuff behind you. It's possible. Why can't you do that? Right?
mhm.
Let's give it a whirl. Let's go. Let's try something different. Let's roll the dice. You're a young man. you know Sorry,
Yeah. You're getting excited over there.
I get excited. Sorry, I get excited about motivational. So yeah, I just start, and I think all that to tell that story is that I think that we come across that in our lives, and people that have never tried anything or
Mhm,
wanted to do anything risky, and we begin to slowly take on some of those beliefs and not even realize that, hey, there's a lot of capacity in each and every one of us.
right, right. I love that story, but how can we take someone, let's say you and I are guidance counselors, which we easily can be, right? Because we've had a little bit of life. right? If you will. So how can we take that same story, and if we had a teenager in front of us and this is what they wanted to do, I agree with two things. One is don't shoot down a dream,
Mm.
right? The other one is what can we do to facilitate that dream?
Mm.
But then, even if you are a professional football player, basketball player, hockey player, soccer player, whatever it is, let's say you get there. What then? What
Mm.
then? What do you do? Let's say you have a successful career. Your goal is to play 12 years and you played for 12 years. What then? I think that would be a better conversation of let's shoot down your dreams, but okay, let's say you are going to do all these things. Let's facilitate all the training you are required, but let's also have a second plan for what happens at that point. Let's think about your success along the way, and let's also think about success after that, because we all know as much as a teenager is going to say they're going to play forever, they're going to be 98 and still playing professional ball, it's not going to happen. So if we can come back and say, okay, I love your dream. How long do you want to play for?
Oh.
Is it
Mm-hmm.
10 years? Because most athletes, maybe that's all they have, right? Because
Mm.
the body starts to come down. Maybe, it depends on the type of game you're playing, right? Because if you're playing golf, you can play longer, right?
Very good point.
But
Paddleball.
yeah, oh man, I used to play paddleball all the time, handball.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but it depends on, I'm talking about high level, well paid into the millions of dollars. How long can you sustain that for? And then what happens? Let's say listen, people are getting $80 million for a year, 2 years, 3 years now contracts, or $500 million for 5 years. It's crazy the amount of money some athletes are making. But it's almost like if you did not start with that type of money, what do you do? How do you sustain that lifestyle that you're gonna have? The fancy cars, the dinners, the traveling,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden all that money stops. Did you make a
Mm-hmm.
plan to sustain
Mm-hmm.
that lifestyle? Did you invest? Did you do all these things? So can't we have that conversation with a teenager now and say, I love your dream. What happens after? Right? Can we set
Yeah.
somebody up for a better success rate that way?
Most definitely, right? Yeah, I think always having a long-term goal is huge, right? And to your point, there's a saying that they have in sports. Perhaps you've heard it. They say the ball will always stop bouncing. The ball will stop bouncing at one point, which means as you said, there will come an end to your athletic career. I put it in this term. I tell my kids this. I have one that plays now over in Europe
Mm.
himself. And I used to tell him this at a young age because they used to come to the YMCA with me and we play together. But I used to tell them early, to your point, is everybody ends up playing at the YMCA, whether you played for the Knicks, whether you played for the Celtics, whether you played in Germany, everybody ends up playing at the YMCA. The point, to your point, is, yeah, you want to have a long-term plan, right? There is right. And I think that's an important point you mentioned is talking to the kids is that there is more to us than our occupation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it may be, whether it's, a coach, a teacher, a professional athlete, that is something we do. We take great pride in it. We love it. We're passionate about it, but there's more to us than simply what we do. And so communicating that to young people as well, like, hey, yeah, have a dream, go and be the best, but realize that coding is not just you, right? An athlete is not just you. There's something more to you. And should that cease and stop one day, whatever it is, you have a higher purpose, and there's something in you. that goes beyond and transcends your profession and what you do. And then even back to that, one of the things I love and listen to you, we talked about before we came on, is that growth mindset, right? Of, hey, continuing to grow. That athletics could be a season in your life, but hey, there's so much more you can do. There's some untapped resources inside of you, and right, figure out what that passion is, what that next season is, and begin to, use some of those habits and disciplines to craft that new season in your life. And how exciting is that? Is that we're not just pigeonholed into one area. Should you choose, that's fine. But if there's another thing that you're being led to, that you can develop that. And that, right, as we talked earlier, is exciting as well.
Yeah. So let me ask you, and it's very interesting. How did you get to Europe? How did you get to Australia to play for that 1 year, and then to Germany for 5? That you don't just show up, right? You actually have to have some accolades in order to be able to even be accepted into any team, no matter where.
Well, yeah, and I really do wish my story was I was so good and I was recruited and I had agents after me and I just had to pick what. That was not the case, Raphael. It was, mine was a different journey, and one that, as obviously you look back on and you're like, thank goodness. But I went to a tiny university, a little NAIA school. I was fortunate that the coach there had played in the NBA for 10 years. So I was able to glean a lot of wisdom, a lot of healthy interpersonal habits that I learned from him that I didn't have going there. But I went to this small school. And like I said, I remember from 5 years old, I wanted to play. And so it had come to end. There's no agents, there's no recruiting. And it's just me. It's me hustling. So it's playing, working out every day, playing in tournaments, calling agents. And so what I did is, okay, so this is pre-internet, or right when the internet was kind of starting. So so there was a book of all the teams in Europe, right? Okay, and it had the general managers, those type of things. Now, granted, I did have a very successful career at this small college. And so what I did is I started calling these. I would get up at 5 a.m, right? It's a 9-hour difference. And I would call these general managers or coaches, right? It's like a little book about this size. And I would ring the number, and maybe the person knew English, right? I'm calling teams in Sweden. I'm calling assistant coaches in Iceland, in Germany, in France. And I'm like, hey, I just finished playing. Can I send you a videotape? So I had to go make my own video. For those of you that are younger that don't know what that is, go make a videotape, Seafood. Then I had to convert it into the PAL system, send it over to Europe.
Right.
And then I would call them and say, hey, did you get that tape? I talked to you a month ago, right? I talked to you a month ago. What'd you think? And they would be like, no, you're not good. We're going to go with somebody else. And then just start calling. And I remember distinctly, watershed moment. I sent a tape to an agent. And he said, can I be honest with you, Clint? And I grit my teeth like this. And I was like, sure. And he's like, the chances, these are exact words. He goes, the chances of you making it are slim to none. You went to a small school. You're not super tall for basketball. You're not super fast. And chances are you're not going to make it. That's a watershed moment to where you got to decide, some people are more stronger. Is this in me? Or am I making this dream up? And do I keep going? I had a choice to make the next morning, get up, start calling some more and start going after it. short story, man, I'll go the short story, and then if you want to go into exactly how I got the contract,
Sure.
but short story, I ended up playing in Germany, having a successful career. I saw that agent over there at one of the games afterwards. We had a great conversation, of course, very professional conversation. But as you know, man, when you're trying to do something that's difficult, when you're chasing something that you feel is inside of you, you're going to hit some roadblocks. Not everybody's going to be excited about your dream or your vision and what you're going to do. But if you're able to continue to take a step forward, any type of step, man, that you'll end up in places that you really hoped for and dreamed of a lot of times.
Yeah. I like the fact that you saw him and you had I like the way you put it, professional conversation. Because a lot of people would say, "Oh, I showed him," or "Told you so." And so the other day, I caught one of my, I have a martial arts school, and I caught one of the young kids saying to his dad, "Told you so." And I called him over and I said, "Come over here." He's like, "What is it, Sifu?" I said, "I don't want you to be an 'I told you so' person."
Nice. That's good wisdom.
And then he goes, "Why? I was right." I said, "Yeah, but you're making someone else feel wrong." I said,
It's
"Why
good.
don't you just encourage them and say, 'Hey, look at that. I was right.'" You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to necessarily say, "Told you so," and start shaking their head and all this stuff. And I said, "You don't have to even say anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the important thing that, you can say to yourself, 'Okay, I was right.'" But when you tell someone, "I told you so," it kind of like, some people feel empowered, like, "Yeah, I knew I was going to do it." But that silent victory sometimes is so amazing that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to celebrate every victory by putting someone else down, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I
Great.
was trying to teach him.
What great wisdom, and how fortunate for that young man to have you in his life and
Mm,
to learn that early on, right? Because that's a high level skill set to do that. And as you said, a lot of times we don't know if, right, when we're chasing dreams or doing things, let's be honest, we have doubt. We believe in ourselves, but we don't, it doesn't always mean we're going to have success, right? There's
mhm,
times where we have failure.
right.
And to have that, be able to exercise humility in those situations, because as you said, even though I got to play, it would, it could be short lived anyway. And, this relationship with this gentleman could carry on in different and in other healthy ways. You never
Right.
know, right, where that journey leads. And I love the fact that you were able to pass that on to this young man. That's not a lot of people hear that. And I think particularly today, get that wisdom passed down to them.
Yeah, yeah. And also you talked about, the fact that you had a professional conversation, because you're right. You never know where that relationship can lead to. And had you gone there and like kind of said, "I told you so, I was going to be here," then he on his own could have seen like, "Oh wow, this guy he was serious about what he wanted to do. He was persistent, and look at him. He's done what he wanted to do." That alone, without you saying a word, will let him know your drive, will let him know the kind of person you are. And then he may say, "You know what? If I want somebody for this business venture or whatever, this, that, the other, that's the kind of person I want on my team." Someone who,
Amen.
even though I told him he's never going to make it, still made it and flourished, right? So that's a
Amen.
beautiful
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, I even think about it as you were mentioning that right, that long-term view. This is how long-term it is. So, as I mentioned, my son plays. I don't think I contacted this particular agent, but as my son was getting his foot in the door, was making some calls for him as
Mhm.
well. And right, that's as right, in the martial arts world. I heard you talking on a podcast. It's a small world, right?
Mhm.
People know, and right, to bring it 25 years later, I was making calls to people, maybe calling a favor, or who knows, to your point, because you maintain professional, right? You exercise humility. There could be a benefit, a mutual benefit. You don't do it for those reasons, but circle back to our abundance mentality, right?
Yeah.
You never, there's enough to go around.
Yeah. Don't close any doors.
Yep. Good.
Have the janitor key.
You're right. I like that. Very good.
Clint, let me ask you, you could have gone into coaching because you played professionally. A lot of people, that may be an opportunity for a lot of players, right? Depends on, there's so many different avenues that a player can go into. They can go into regular business, they can go into coaching. Nowadays, they can go into broadcasting, they can do a lot of things, right? Now they're doing Subway commercials, all these different things, right?
Right.
So a lot of different opportunities for a player to be able to continue their craft, if you will, in the same field. I've spoken to people who were gymnasts and they decided to do something for other gymnasts. They become a gymnast coach because they no longer were at that age where they can be a gymnast, but they decided, I'm going to help other people shine. But you didn't go in that route, did you? But you still went into coaching.
I did have a not directly. So I did not want to go into basketball coaching. I did it for probably 14 years, or maybe a little bit less, 11 years. I didn't. It was not something that I wanted to pursue. I had another profession. I did do it for a few years, but loved it. A fantastic experience. But I even learned from that, right, I was really loving the mindset component and the leadership component. And, as you were mentioning, pouring into the kids and sharing these principles, I realized that there was kind of more in me that needed to get out, that I wanted to share and help people grow. And that's how I kind of got into coaching. And there's, I don't know if I could tell you that story of how I,
of course,
got into executive coaching. So one of the organizations that I was working for post basketball here in the city, they had gifted us some executive coaching. So our team that we were at, very busy. We worked very hard. We were very confident in ourselves, and nobody wanted the coaching. They thought, I think we all kind of thought, hey, we've kind of arrived. We've been doing this a long time. And so, I had this growth mindset, like, hey, I still need to grow. At that time, I had my master's degree. I had been in this profession for 5 years. I had played professional basketball, but I was like, okay, I'll take this executive coaching. But I'll tell you, Sifu, what was going through my mind, to be honest, was a lot of hubris. So I thought, like I said, I have my master's degree. I've been doing this. This guy's not a specialist in this field. I already played professional basketball. I'm a disciplined man. I know how to work hard when nobody's watching. I know how to grind. I know how to get things done. What is this guy possibly going to show me? And short story, it was transformative for me. The principles that I learned began to cascade down and throughout our organization, were transformative ultimately for our organization, and help, just have revenue go through the roof, what we never seen before. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary for me. I got to go learn more about this. And so that was the impetus for me to go get my doctorate in strategic leadership and executive coaching, because like I said, I was like, I thought this is amazing and I want to learn more about this. How did this help me? I thought I knew it. And so that was kind of my foray into it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. So many people, because they've been doing something for a long time, never allow an outsider to come in and say, well, maybe you can change this, maybe you can do that. And they're like, whoa, what do you know? You know nothing. I've been doing this for a while, right? So yeah, to even, and even though you may have apprehension at first, but when you started receiving it, then you realized, wow, this is pretty cool. And then you didn't just stop there. You went, I got to go deeper, right? And you did. And you did.
And
Go ahead.
that's what I love, right? That was one of the things that you talked about in one of your previous podcasts is I loved, you said, I always feel like I can learn from anyone. Right. I remember you saying that, and that hit home for me. I think we're kind of kindred spirits in that vein, because you've been doing your craft for a long time, right? You lead a lot of people, you've built a lot of things. And yet for you, right, you have this podcast, yet for you to say I can learn from anybody, that takes a lot of humility. And that's a really a high level thing. And I think is one of the things that coaching is about, right? It's about that, hey, people have something inside of them that they need to share. And our job as leaders, whether it's business coaching, right, training, is to kind of help them unearth that, evoke that awareness in them. And it's a blessing for them because they go, but to your point, we also get a piece of that because we're like, oh, this person that I'm leading, that's right a couple levels down below me, quote unquote, in the org chart, I just learned something from them, right? And once again, back to that abundance mindset of like, wow, they're being blessed, they're growing, I learned something too, and here we go. And you start seeing, exciting things happen.
Yeah, and that's when you're open, right? Do me a favor, Dr. Clint, if you can put your links in the private chat, and I'll share them with our audience here. I'll put them on the screen as well. One of the things that definitely I'm intrigued about is what possessed you to write your book. And before you even go there, I got to be honest, I'm going to want a signed copy, right?
My pleasure.
Because for me, it's incredible that I can not only talk to the person that took the energy and the courage to put something down and put it out into the world, but if they can share it with me and I can share it with many people, that's just an imaginable thing where we can grow from your words, from your wisdom. So thank you.
Yeah, I would be happy to, of course, sign one and send one.
Sure.
The book is kind of a culmination of, right, really wanting to unleash leadership potential. Kind of back to that story of the bad coach, and then seeing what good coaches do. And organizations is a lot of times they're not tapping into the power that is those that are following them or those that they're leading. And so really power coaching is about that. It's about exercising that humility and really beginning to put those that you lead at the forefront and really saying, how can I help you excel? How can I help you be the best version of you? And for some, I think a lot of organizations are getting that, but it is kind of a paradigm shift of, you know what? Yes, we are running a business. We need to do these things. We have our roles and that type of thing. But when you get behind people and find out what makes them tick, what's their driving force, what are their motivational levers, not just to get more productivity out of them, but right, circling, you can kind of see this thread of abundance mentality in our conversation, is when you're about them and their success, right, then you're going to have success too. And so when you begin to have those conversations of, hey, where do you see yourself? And then back to our long-term conversation, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years? Oh, really? I didn't know you wanted to do that. How can I help you get there? How can I help you develop those skill sets? Oh, you want to be a public speaker? Where can we get you in front of people to help you to exercise that? And when we began to, evoke that awareness in them, help them to think differently, allow them to dream, and then come alongside that in our businesses, in our leadership. And then you really see people excel. You see people motivated. You help remove their limiting beliefs, right? Like, oh, I just kind of saw myself at this level in the organization. And, just by questioning, right? Like, well, have you ever thought of this? And perhaps, like we talked about, if you think about it, right, Sifu, how many times in our lives did anybody ever say something positive that we can do something? If you were fortunate, maybe you had a dad in your life, and let's say maybe he was a good one and he said some positive things in your life. Maybe you had one coach that said, right? But if you think about it, most people want to keep you here, right? Most people don't ever have anything, somebody say, hey, I'm with you. I want to help you excel. And so if we can begin to do that, right? This book helped, right? Leaders do that, is that I think you're really going to see people begin to fly. And I think as a leader, you're going to get excited because, right, you're already doing it, right? You're training people. You're watching their fitness levels go through the roof. They're doing things they never thought they can handle themselves, right, on the mat and in the street, right? And you get to see that. But a lot of leaders don't, right? Because they're just trying to hit this. The true fun and the excitement and the passion is when you're developing people and you see them fly and go to different levels that they never thought possible. And you're like, wow, this is exciting. I'm helping people grow in ways that they never imagined.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's an incredible journey that we can be as coaches. I didn't get your links, by the way. So if maybe you didn't hit enter.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
So as a coach, as somebody who is, to me, a true mentor or a true coach is someone who is always looking to make the other person better than they could ever be. So I always tell my students, whether it's martial arts or if I'm coaching somebody or if I'm helping somebody with their business or I'm a mental game coach, I try to get people to elevate. I always want them to be way better than I am. And so I'm always stressing this to my students. I say, listen, guys, I want you to be 1,000 times better than me. I said, but I have to be honest with you. I'm still growing.
Amen.
So you have to do it as well. You have to constantly move your needle because I'm not asking you to catch up with me. I'm asking you to be the best version of you that you can be. Then they're like, oh, I get it now. I'm like, yeah, you should get it because it's about you. Listen, I've done this move 1,000, maybe 100, maybe 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
The question is, have you? No. If not, then let's get you to do it. Let's get you started and stop looking at that guy over there because guess what? His progress is not your progress. You have to create your own progress. You have to create your own path. And you can't always, go on somebody else's road because they paved it. You have to pave your own. Yes, you may be going to the same destination, whether it's black belt or higher, because I always say to my kids, especially when I'm teaching kids, I said, who wants to be a black belt? And they all raise their hand. I'm like, okay, is that it? And they're like, no. I said, well, what is there? They're like, we want your belt. I'm like, yes, yes, I want you. I said, but you're going to have to fight me for it. You got
I
to
love
fight me for it.
it.
I said, and I'm willing
That's
to fight
great.
you anytime, but you
That's
have to do it,
fantastic.
right? It's that
Yeah.
success that we're looking for, but we cannot, even though we may stand on the shoulders of giants, we eventually have to be the giant that other
Uh,
people can stand on, right?
oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. That's very sticky, right?
yeah.
You have to take your own path, right? Like you
Hmm.
said, we could be going in the same direction, but you have to take your own path. And how often, to your point, do we see people that looking to the left and to the right um,
Mm.
and want those same things and that same path? But to your point, that journey is going to be different. And to your point, you got to keep growing. You got to keep moving forward. It's a tough lesson, and right. I think right in the martial arts, that discipline has got to
Hmm.
help out immensely. Right, where you're like, hey, you got to show up. Got to show up to
Yeah,
the mat. Got to
yeah,
put
yeah.
work in. The belt's just not gonna float from the ceiling. You got to come put in work.
Dr. Clint, I got to tell you, I do some funny things with the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I've put because the kids are like, they're looking, and so I go over there, I take a baseball cap, I put it on their head, but then I take two paper plates,
Yeah.
so they, all of a sudden they're like,
Good.
I said, no, you got to
Yeah.
look straight,
Uh,
because your path is this way. Right.
mm,
And the parents are laughing and they're like, Sifu,
mm.
you're crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I'm
It's a,
trying to get them focused. And because if they're going to look to the left, that's all they see because the paper plate is over here
mm,
covering their vision. It's almost like blinders on a horse, right? You
mm-hmm,
can't have a horse be a thoroughbred winner
mm,
if you don't put the blinders on them.
mm,
So we do have to have the mindset of we can't achieve many things at once,
mm,
but we can achieve one thing at a time. We may
mm,
have our goal of achieving many, but we have to go for one at a time. And once we accomplish that goal, then yes,
mm,
we can have other goals that we go for.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and right as you know, coaching as well. That's a big component is right having those small measurable steps in
Mhm.
front of you, right, and beginning to plug away at each and every one of them, right, taking a step forward, next day taking a step forward. It sounds very simple and an easy thing to do, but to your point, right, we all get sideways. We're looking to the right, the left, what this person
Mhm.
is doing, what that person is doing, how they get there so fast, or you right. But to your point, right, taking that step and helping, right, reminding people of that. It's a as you said, that we constantly need to be reminded of that, and
Mm.
have people tell us, right, hey, you've got a path marked out, right, you're going on that right path. It's going to take time. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward. Don't
Yeah.
get distracted.
Yeah. It's like, in your conscious mind, you can have one thought, just one, right? In your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind, you can have multiple and millions of thoughts.
Mm.
And so that's why every night when I go to sleep, even last night, I said, I do believe in God, and I was praying, and I said, please allow my mind to discover new paths, new ways to
Love
do
it.
things.
Love.
So, because you know what? I have a supercomputer.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it to
Yeah.
use while I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
But, during my day, like right now, all I'm thinking of is our conversation.
Yeah.
I can't think about what I'm eating for lunch later or what I'm doing later, what I'm teaching, or when I'm sitting with my client, what am I going to be helping them with? I can't think about them
Mm.
and still be here present for you. So
Amen.
once again, that one thought is what we have to focus on. And then once we finish with that focus, we can take it and go to a different one, but only
Amen.
one thing at a time, right?
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned when you fall asleep is I have a similar prayer. I pray like, hey, give me wisdom, give me ideas, give me newness, give me innovation, download it. So very, very similar
Yeah,
to your requests as well.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's important, right? Important to, as
It's
you're saying,
huge.
right? We're evolving, we're moving, right? And there's untapped resources, right, that God has for us, and that, hey, we ask, we receive, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I've always said for a very long time, when I was a kid, I always wanted to change the world, and of course, everyone tells you you can't. But I realized they're absolutely wrong. If I can change one person's perspective,
Mm,
I've changed the world, right? Because you never
mhm,
know what they'll do.
mm,
So the other thing that and I love the fact that you talk about the power of dreams, right?
mhm,
To always be a dreamer, to always go after your dreams. You went after yours and you succeeded, but your dreams don't end. You can have new dreams, right?
mhm. Yeah, and I think most definitely there's always something new. I believe, right, that as we just
Hmm.
shared that um, you can however you want to do it, download new ideas, new innovations, new creativity.
Hmm.
Um, but I think we're always moving, always growing. If we seek that out, right, we can tap into um, something new. And I believe that you will be given that new dream, right? You will be
Hmm.
given that
Yeah.
new passion that you have, that's in alignment with your wirings, right? That's in alignment with who you are. Sometimes it might take a little bit to discover that,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, going back to that athletic thing, that will come to an end, right? We have seasons in our life, and
Right.
sometimes those seasons are longer, sometimes they're shorter, right? And but I believe that if you can have a dream for each of those seasons, right, and have a goal for each of those seasons. It's interesting, Sifu. I was just doing some research, and you talk about dreams and moving forward, is that only 3%, this was a recent survey, 3% of people have goals that
Mm.
they strive after. And so if you think, right, if you think, I know you're a man that is doing a lot of things, right? You got uh, buildings, and you've got different businesses, and right, you got a lot of things going,
Right.
and that means a lot of goals. So for somebody, for like you and myself, I have some goals too, but those keep us driving, and that keeps us moving forward, and trying new things and taking risks. And I think a lot of people, a lot of times, maybe suffer because they're not tapping in. They don't have those goals. They've
Mhm.
that dream has gone cold in their heart. Um, but if they're able to fan it into flame, I believe that it's there, and they begin to start asking, like, what is it? What is that purpose that you've put me here for,
Mhm.
that I can influence one person? Because bringing it back to our conversation, about nowadays people see certain things on Instagram, and they think they have to be a certain way, and it's
Right.
all got to be perfect, and you have to have all the answers, when in reality, right, and I'm sure if you were to tell your journey was probably not a perfect one. It probably didn't look perfect all the time to get to where you're at, but yet you had that dream, and you chunked away at it one bit at a time, and
Mhm.
have done some amazing things. And so I think, for our listeners, right, if they can begin to tap into that, and if it has grown cold, fan that into flame, and begin to ask, what is it in that I can begin to do to influence just one person? Because you do, those that are watching, you do have something in you that is special, that needs to get out, and
Mhm.
is going to help someone,
Yeah.
and it needs to be tapped into. And I think both of us want to encourage our listeners today to begin to do that and to fan that back into flame.
Without a doubt. One of the things that I've spoken to people, and it doesn't matter the age, some people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't know what my why is. And so a lot of times my suggestion is, what are you passionate about? What do you like? Listen, you like collecting baseball cards. Okay, that's a passion. Maybe that's a skill. And how can you hone that? How can you make that into something that you maybe become an expert on? Anything. We are here for a purpose. Each one of us has a purpose. Look, a bee colony, everyone has a purpose. Every bee has a job, right? No matter where you are. And we talked about like a football team nowadays, a professional football team. They don't have one coach. They probably have a roster of 50 to 60 coaches, right?
Yeah.
Because you have everybody on your sidelines, right? Even in baseball, you have a first base coach, second base coach, a pitching coach, a catching coach, a throwing coach, all these different things. So who can help you? If you don't have a coach, if you don't have a mentor, I strongly suggest you find one. If you cannot afford one, go to the library. They're all sitting waiting for you. They're all there. Your book. Where can people get your book, Dr. Clint?
Yeah, it has a release date, January 3rd on Amazon. They go to Amazon, they can get it there, and it's will be there ready for them. Perfect, yeah, highly encourage it. And to your point about coaching, we can all learn something is, okay, so I have a doctorate in this stuff. I have a coach. So I won't tell you who he is because then everybody's going to go hire him. But he's really good. But to your point, right? We're always, I think there's always room to grow. Read. I'm like you said about the library. I'm a voracious reader. I like to read and do Audible and stuff. And I think that's a key. I'm a firm believer in it, as you are as well.
Yeah. One of the things, of course, longevity is what we do now, right? It's our legacy. What we do can become part of something to leave to the next generation. But is it the next generation or 10 generations from today? What are they going to remember us? Do we write? Listen, you writing that book is amazing, right? I've written so many books, but none of them have been published. And I'm okay with that. As long as I can leave them to my family, and maybe they can 10 generations from now go, what was Raphael thinking? Oh, here it is. He wrote it down. He journaled about it. Who did he interview? Oh, yes, Dr. Clint. And they had a great conversation. So all these little things that we do on a daily basis can lead to the future, can change maybe we don't change our current events, but we may impact the future, right? But it's the little steps that we take. I also want to let everybody know that 2023 is going to be an amazing year for all of us. And I want to bring all the coaches who've ever been on any one of my 4 shows to come on, and we're going to get together in New York. And obviously you're definitely coming. I know you're
that would be great.
And here's the thing, if you don't have a coach, or even if you have a coach, or even if you are a coach, you may just associate with someone and go, there's a coach I want to be friends with, or a coach I want to hire, or somebody that can mentor me, or even an accountability partner, because a lot of people don't realize that. You said it earlier. A lot of people, they keep you here. But when you have somebody who is an associate, somebody who looks not only to, there's a lot of people who are out there who are looking to climb up the ladder. And sometimes you're the ladder and they're trying to step on you to climb up, right? But it's the people that help each other up. That's who you want to associate with, not the ones that want to use you as the ladder, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a key, right? If you look at people that you know are able to achieve their dream or are able to hit some of their goals, they typically, like you said, have somebody in their corner, somebody that's telling them, hey, you can do it, right? Hey, you're just in a valley right now or in a trough. Keep at it, right? Like you do with the kids, keep the blinders on, keep going forward. And yeah, the research supports that's a key indicator if somebody's going to be able to hit some of their goals is they got somebody in their corner, so to speak, saying, hey, let's go. Yep, you got another no, it's all right, keep going, let's go.
That's it.
Keep it out. You got thrown down on the mat again, let's go. Get back
Keep
up,
going.
try it
Keep
again.
going.
Start to grappling.
Yeah. Do me a favor, after we're done, just stay on for a minute. I want to chat with you in the back end. But I want to thank you again for today. Great. I'm so happy you and I connected. I think we will be connected for a very long time. And, like everyone who thinks about their actions today, I want to invite you to my 100th birthday party whenever that time comes, because I'm thinking that's when I'm going to really start living.
Amen. I
So,
like that. Very
so you're
good.
definitely invited, and
Okay.
it's going to be a party,
I love
So,
it. I like
all
that
right, my
attitude.
friend. Yeah,
All right.
thank you. Really, really feel blessed that you and I got this conversation in today. And any words that you can suggest to anybody, either about becoming a coach or getting a coach?
Yeah, you need to do it. If you want to be a coach, do it. You're going to help so many people. They're out there. They need your encouragement. They need your wisdom. They need your expertise. And if you're looking for someone, you're just stuck, or you have some goals, you want to hit some revenue numbers, get a coach in your corner, and they'll help you hit them.
Yeah. And definitely reach out to my good friend, Dr. Clint. He'll help you hit
Thank
those
you.
goals as well, right?
Yeah, amen. Yep,
All right.
that's what I'm about. Thank you, Sifu. It's a
You got it.
pleasure. Great conversation. Love what you're doing,
Thank you.
and look forward to hearing more of your story as well. I loved, as I said, hearing it before and learning a little bit more. So thank you.
My pleasure, my friend. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.